Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight on this Wednesday, March 27th.
But I'm very confident in how I handled this case.
Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx speaks out on the Jussie Smollett controversy, and I'll talk one-on-one with the attorney for the brothers involved in this case.
Let me emphasize that safety is always number one at the Department of Transportation. And a good day is when nothing bad happens.
Senators grill government officials following a global recall of the 737 MAX 8 plane. With less than 2 months left in office, a look at Mayor Emanuel's legacy with a longtime City Hall reporter. Photographing musical greats is the side hustle for a moonlighting employee of the Cook County Clerk's office.
Mr. Goodson, I gotta talk to you. There's not enough shelter for us people on the street.
Who is us?
And filmmaker and actor Emilio Estevez joins us to talk about his film, The Public, which examines the intersection of homelessness and public spaces. All that and more, next on Chicago Tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Paris Schutz. Here's what's making news in Chicago tonight. Chicago has chosen a winner in its secretive competition for the O'Hare Modernization Project. It's a group led by local architect Jeannie Gang. The Studio ORD Group's renderings for the $8.5 billion global terminal call for an airy roof with wood-covered beams supported by Y-shaped columns. Also, indoor green space and an area meant to mimic a Chicago neighborhood.
We're making an incredible statement of architectural excellence that speaks to not only our architectural legacy, but our architectural future and contribution as the only city in North America that holds and hosts the architecture.
Gang's group beat out 5 other finalists in the international design competition. One of them will be selected to lead a smaller project at the airport. Now, the mayor says the project will not cost taxpayers. The funding will all come from airlines and passengers. Some community activists are calling on Mayor Emanuel to put the brakes on a new bike share deal. The mayor struck an arrangement with rideshare giant Lyft that would have the company invest $50 million to expand the program citywide by 2021. In exchange, Lyft would run the system for the next 9 years and rake in about $20 million each year in revenue. Today, some community activists likened this to another parking meter deal.
The previous administration signed a parking meter deal that benefited the Daley family, but robbed the residents of the city of Chicago. Let's not make the same mistake again.
Some of the activists expressed support for a similar proposal offered by Uber, but they say that company did not put them up to today's news conference. The embattled State Department of Children and Family Services has a new director as Governor J.B. Pritzker appoints Mark Smith to the post. Smith is the executive director of foster care and intact services at a health and wellness facility in south suburban Olympia Fields. Governor Pritzker has also ordered an independent review of DCFS's intact family service unit. As for the weather, we could get some showers tonight with a low around 48, and then tomorrow cloudy with a slight chance of showers again, and a high around 60. And don't forget, you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also watch via podcast and the PBS video app. Embattled Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx is speaking out today about the decision to drop all charges against Jussie Smollett. This as Mayor Emanuel and lawmakers express more anger at the decision, saying Smollett was essentially let off the hook. Eddie Aruza joins us now from the Loop, where he spoke with the state's attorney just a short while ago. Eddie.
Well, Paris, State's Attorney Kim Foxx was on the defensive all day today following that outrage and disbelief, principally coming from Mayor Emanuel and Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, after Jussie Smollett was cleared of all 16 federal felony charges against him. I should say felony charges against him. The Empire actor, of course, claimed that he had been the victim of a racist and homophobic attack on January 29th. It almost immediately got nationwide attention. It was followed by a long and expensive police investigation, and ultimately the police determined that it was a hoax. But now here is a little bit of what Kim Foxx had to say today in response to the reaction to the outcome yesterday.
Mr. Smollett was afforded that opportunity as part of our alternative prosecutions unit, which is a unit that offers diversion for certain class 4 offenses. And so while many people saw this as some special treatment that Mr. Smollett got, he actually got the treatment that we've given about 5,700 people over the course of the last 2 years based on the nature of the offense, a class 4, one step up from a misdemeanor, and the fact that he didn't have a background. And so I think for many people, it caught them by surprise, given the notoriety of the case, and separating that from the realities of the fact that this was a class 4 case eligible for alternative prosecution.
Now, Jussie Smollett still does have a criminal file against him, but he walked out of court yesterday essentially a free man, and he even spoke to reporters insisting that the attack still took place. There was no admission of guilt on his part in the courtroom, a process that's usually called allocution, but he went out and still claimed that it happened. And here's a little bit more about what I beg your pardon, what Kim Foxx had to say in response to the fact that he maintains his innocence, but was essentially guilty of what he had committed.
We would not be in a position of asking Mr. Smollett to forfeit his bond if we believed that he were innocent. In essence, that would us be taking $10,000 from an innocent man. I certainly understand that when we talk about what justice looks like, we can talk about the money, we can talk about the community service. But I think Mr. Smollett, for a long time to come, will have to answer to the questions of the public as to what he did in this case. And I think that's justice that may be long-lasting.
Eddie, Mayor Emanuel's been on somewhat of a tear expressing his outrage at this decision. What did he have to say today?
Well, as you know, Paris, he has been livid about this, and he found out about how this case was going to be resolved at a graduation yesterday, a police graduation, where he was accompanied by Superintendent Eddie Johnson, and they both found out in the middle of that rather than being notified ahead of time, although the state's attorney's office said that they did place a courtesy call to their offices yesterday morning. But here's more of what the mayor had to say today as he continues outraged over this case.
He's either a person that pulled a hoax around a hate crime for his racial background and sexual orientation, or he is totally a victim and innocent. But you both can't be right. And the city of Chicago deserves an answer, and they deserve an answer about accountability and responsibility in the system.
The mayor has not ruled out a suit that would essentially ask Jussie Smollett to pay back the city for the costs of the investigation. But of course, there still hangs the specter over this case that maybe the Empire actor did get some preferential treatment. Early on in the case, Kim Foxx received a call from Tina Chen, a Chicago attorney who used to be the chief of staff for Michelle Obama, asking Foxx to contact Eddie Johnson and leave the investigation up to the FBI. Kim Foxx did do that, but the police department followed through and conducted the investigation. Here again is Kim Foxx about what her recusal in the case and how that played into the final outcome.
I'm very proud of the fact that we have our alternative prosecutions unit. I'm very proud that we're a model for other agencies, prosecutor agencies in the country. I think, again, the uniqueness of this circumstance, Mr. Smollett's celebrity, going from a victim to a suspect, and all of the attention that's come around it. You know, I think Chicago has not seen the best of what can happen, but I'm very confident in how I handled this case. And I think for skeptics, you know, they will need to look at the entirety of my record. I have been consistent in how we've used alternative prosecution. I have been consistent in talking about criminal justice reform.
We haven't really heard the last of this case because we are told that the FBI is still conducting not necessarily an investigation but an inquiry as to how this played out. What they are looking into, however, is a letter that Jussie Smollett said that he received a couple of weeks before the attack, in which he was threatened and in which there was a suspicious powder inside. It turned out to be a common medication. They're still looking into that, and there is a possibility that Jussie Smollett still could face federal charges in this case, Paris.
Okay, Eddie, thank you so much. And as you know, many people were surprised at yesterday's outcome, not the least of which the former attorney for the brothers whose testimony was key to the case. According to prosecutors and the Chicago Police Department, Abel and Ola Osundero were paid $3,500 by Jussie Smollett to carry out a staged attack. This is something that Smollett has vehemently denied. And now joining us is the attorney for the Osundero brothers, Gloria Schmidt. Welcome to Chicago Tonight.
Great. Thank you, Paris.
First, your reaction to the explanation given today for such abrupt dropping of these charges against Smollett.
My first reaction to this was, if everything that Ms. Fox is saying is true, why not be transparent about that? And as far as my office is concerned, we were just within days of coordinating meetings between the Osundero brothers and the victim advocate that had been appointed for them.
And so this came as a surprise to you?
This came as a complete surprise. I'm on spring break with my kids, with my husband. We're packing, we're ready to leave. And then I see the news just like everyone else.
Now, she says that this happens all the time for Class 4 felonies. What are your reaction to the terms of this? No admission of guilt, 16 hours of community service.
You know, I'm not surprised that Mr. Smollett would not see jail time necessarily, because that is the way that Class 4 felonies do work. But what is so bizarro about this is that there was no requirement of any kind of admonishment. In other words, you find other similarly charged people looking at felony counts, they're going to be expected as part of some plea, provided that their background allows for it, to some kind of misdemeanor. And then after so many months or a couple of years on probation or some kind of court supervision, if they, you know, jump through all the right hoops and they watch what they're doing, then they have the opportunity to then expunge the record or seal it or not have jail time. But none of those things start without there being an admonishment or a guilty plea. And that's what that means, a plea bargain.
So if they really haven't explained well enough for you why they did this, what do you think is behind this?
The conclusion that I draw from all of this was that the case was being handled and it got very, very messy. And I'm not talking about from the police's side or from my office or Mr. Smollett's office. I don't know what's going on in the state's attorney's office, but something does not pass the smell test here.
Now, you might find other people saying, well, maybe they just didn't have a solid case. Were your clients, the Osundero brothers, prepared to testify that they were paid to stage this attack?
Absolutely. From day one, they wanted to cooperate. They knew, and this is why I first said that they manned up. They knew that this was going to put them in perhaps a light that they didn't want to be in, but they were wanting to do the right thing, knowing that this would be an embarrassment, knowing that they would, call into question what was their motives. They've apologized for their role in this participation in this act. They have expressed their tremendous regret over what their role in this. There's still a third party here who is not coming clean. And I think, understandably, that's why a lot of people, Mayor Emanuel included, why they're so upset.
As I understand, the team for the brothers consists of you and a crisis communication manager, and you differed with your clients on their response to this, because they haven't said anything yet.
Well, I can tell you this. I've differed with them on a lot of different points because they're in the driver's seat. At the end of the day, I am their attorney. I give them counsel. I tell them this is what you can expect to happen. And at the end of the day, it is their ultimate choice. Any defense attorney out there can tell you it is probably in your best interest to not speak to the police, to not make statements, to not go on tape, to take what you get from the Miranda warning seriously. And I sat there in the room with my clients in the interrogation room and told them, you do not have to say anything. And I had the commander there, and we said, you don't have to say anything. What they had knowledge of was that Mr. Smollett had gone on Robin Roberts' show and saw what an enormous impact this was having on minority communities. They didn't want to be part of this fraud that was going to probably incite riots, pin people together. They did not want to be part of a dialogue.
Right, and that's why they gave the testimony. But I guess what I'm getting at, since this has happened, is there any indication that anyone from the Smollett camp had ever reached out to make contact with them?
No. I don't see how that would even be an option. I was with them daily. They were working very hard to piece their lives back together, researching all the things that they could do to make this a positive, reaching out to the community individually, away from the cameras, doing it for themselves. I don't see a space where any of their intentions to stay committed changed.
Is there any legal recourse that you would seek against Smollett or the state's attorney on behalf of your clients?
I absolutely have given them my opinion on what they can do and what they should do, and they're taking that all in. Again, they had gone through a realization process through this whole process, and they want to make sure that the next step they take is a good one for them and their family, and overall so that there's a happy ending to the story.
All right, Gloria Schmidt, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paris.
And up next, simmering questions in the case of the Boeing 737 MAX 8. U.S. transportation officials are facing questions today about the problems with Chicago-based Boeing's 737 MAX 8 jet. This is in the wake of two recent fatal crashes involving that model of the airplane. U.S. senators probed government officials, including U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, today during congressional hearings on Capitol Hill. And here to help us unpack this story and what it could mean for the airline industry are Crain's Chicago business reporter Claire Bushy and commercial pilot Rob Mark. He is also senior editor of the aviation magazine Flying, and he publishes the aviation blog jetwine.com. Welcome both of you to Chicago tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, Claire, what did we learn today from the testimony in front of Congress?
Well, we learned that a good day, according to Elaine Chao, is when nothing bad actually happens. But there was not a great deal that was actually new. The Inspector General for the Transportation Department said that there will be an audit of the 737 MAX approval process. And other than that, very little was actually new.
All right, Rob, Mark, let's recap. Two crashes. In October, Lion Air Flight 610 in Indonesia, and then earlier this month, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. Were these crashes similar, and how?
Well, it looks on the outside as if they were similar. We've looked at data that shows the flight path of the airplane, how it varied in altitude and pitch, and again, that they look similar, but that's not proof that they are exactly the same.
And explain the anti-stall software that's under fire.
Well, the anti-stall software, this MCAS software, which I should tell you, pilots knew nothing about before the Indonesian crash, which really upset a lot of people.
So pilots that flew these 737 planes knew nothing about this anti-stall software?
No, absolutely not. And again, the software is designed that if the nose pitch of the airplane gets too high for any reason, even if the software is faulty, it pushes the nose down. It takes the controls right out of the hands of the pilot and pushes the nose down and says, I've got to make the airplane fly again. And then it's the pilot's job to try to wrestle back control from the airplane.
Wow. And Claire Bushy, apparently Boeing has a fix for this that they were working on before this second crash. What is the update that they're trying to make to this software?
They are trying to make sure that 2 sensors instead of only 1 will need to give a reading, and they will need to agree in order to make sure that the system doesn't activate improperly as it has in the past. And that's the main change to it.
And as I understand, pilots are supposed to be trained on this now.
Yes, that is also going to happen, which is something that didn't happen before.
Rob Mark explained the FAA approval process and why this has come under so much fire.
Well, that's always been an interesting process. The way airplanes are built today, they're so complex that the FAA does not have the personnel to supervise and look over the shoulder of every single engineer at Boeing. So they get Boeing, certain engineers at Boeing that they've looked at and certified themselves to say, all right, you keep an eye on this and then report back to us about what you found, and if we agree with it, then we'll approve it. But in this case, again, maybe they did that. We don't know. There's just an awful lot of things that we really don't know.
Claire, can you just talk about how fraught that has the potential of being, where the companies are basically policing themselves in this regulatory process?
It's incredibly fraught. In 2005, the Congress changed the program so that it's no longer that the FAA is going to be looking over the shoulder of the Boeing employees who would self-certify the work. It will actually be signed off by someone at Boeing. And so you need to have a lot of intestinal fortitude in order to stand up to your boss, which is basically what the current system requires.
And as I understand, they have a heavy investment in lobbying in Washington, D.C. Does that play a role in the way this regulation works?
Well, they're certainly paying for something.
It's not steak dinners at the Capitol Grill. Rob Mark, when, if ever, do you expect this plane to fly again?
Well, I think it'll fly at some point. When? That's a good question. Not only does the software have to be installed and tested, but Boeing is going to have to convince the public and the airlines that this is really fixed and that there's not some other problem hiding, waiting for another issue to show up.
And what's that process going to be like, and how long would that take?
Well, that's hard to tell because this is a gray area that they're facing right now. I mean, to have the pressure of the airlines and all these airplanes sitting on the ground, plus the 50 or so that Boeing keeps making every month that are being shoved in places just to keep them settled until they can fly again. There's an enormous amount of pressure on FAA and Boeing to get this thing moving, and that's what we don't want.
Claire, I think you just wrote an article stating that the CEO of Boeing, Dennis Muhlenberg, he's $23 million a year. He's got a pretty nice salary. How has this crisis affected Boeing's bottom line?
Well, Boeing earned $10 billion in last year on $100 billion in revenue. So I don't think that we need to worry about Boeing no longer being a going concern in the near future. However, this is extremely expensive as long as the planes stay grounded. It's costing anywhere between $1 billion and $2 billion per month for as long as they stay on the ground, because they no longer have cash coming in the door from making deliveries to their airline customers. And also, their customers are going to want compensation for the planes that they're not getting.
Rob Mark, going back again, why do you think it is that the United States and the FAA waited so long compared to other countries to ground the plane?
It depends what side of your brain you're working with. If you're on the left side of your brain, the very scientific side, it's because they didn't have any data. They did not have any data that could prove enough to make them think they should ground it. However, the emotional side of customers and other people said, we don't feel real safe in this airplane, do something. And we were just butting heads with each other.
Do you think that there will ever be a point where this 737 MAX 8 model will inspire confidence among flyers to want to get in that plane?
Well, we grounded the 787 a few years ago, but that was a relatively minor issue compared to this. There were no accidents in which any lives were lost. The one you go back to before that was probably the DC-10 in the 70s when they grounded it because people said, I'm not flying on a DC-10.
Right. And DC-10 is not really a model that's out there much anymore.
No, it's not anymore.
Claire Bushy, you're a business reporter, so what about the stock price for people who are deciding, should I buy, should I sell shares of Boeing?
Well, their stock price has gone down 11% in the last 3 weeks. It's trading around $374. They've done very, very well up until now, and frankly, the stock price is going to recover. What's really more of a concern is how this will affect their competition with Airbus and potentially with a Chinese aerospace manufacturer as well.
And how's your reaction? What is your reaction to the way the CEO has handled all of this?
Well, Dennis has been fairly quiet, but it's also pretty difficult to parse what you're going to say when you want to express sympathy for the horrible tragedy that has happened, but also you have lawyers who are undoubtedly reading that statement word for word because they know that plaintiffs' attorneys are going to be doing the same thing. There's about 36 lawsuits that have already been filed on this.
All right, Claire Bushy and Rob Mark, thank you both for your insight.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And still to come on Chicago Tonight, how a Chicago music fan became a professional photographer of musical icons. And hear from the stars of an upcoming film that looks at libraries and their relationship with the homeless. But first to Carol Marine and a top City Hall reporter on the legacy of Mayor Rahm Emanuel in a conversation we recorded earlier.
The days are winding down for Rahm Emanuel as the mayor of Chicago, but how will his 2 terms be judged? Not just in the context of 8 years in office, but within the larger picture of mayors who came before. What legacy does he leave? Where did he succeed and where did he fail? Chicago Sun-Times reporter Fran Spielman has doggedly and meticulously covered Emanuel and his predecessors for, well, decades, right, Fran?
Right. I started as a cowering young radio reporter sent over to cover Richard J. Daley. I was so nervous I didn't say a word. I didn't ask a question. He was intimidating. And then I was there for Bilandic and Byrne and so on ever since.
And Harold Washington. So would you say that Rahm Emanuel is concerned about his legacy at this moment?
I would say obsessed with his legacy. I have never seen a more frenzied end to an administration. He says he's running through the tape. I think he's flying through the tape. He's announcing things at a pace that you'd think he was still running, that he was still running for office for the job that he's about to relinquish. It's a function of his insecurity that he's not confident that he's done the best he can and he's ready to hand it off to someone else.
So the pros and cons of that legacy, Fran, what are his greatest moments, his greatest accomplishments?
I think he has succeeded greatly in making progress on the financial front, chipping away at the rock, identifying specific funding sources for all 4 city employee pension funds. Did he do it quickly enough? No. Did he complete the job? No. He really needed another term to do that, a 3rd term. And so he's leaving it sort of in limbo in that way, but it is far better than it was when he took office. He was left with a pile of bills. And Daley had ignored the pension crisis. He had a report that sat there and it just gathered dust. And so Daley punted it over. Rahm is not punting it over, but it's not done.
And so when we come to the downside of his legacy, does something in particular jump out?
I think I think Chicago was fortunate to have him at this perilous time financially in some ways because he was a man of great contacts. He came from the White House. Who better to tap the federal funding tree in the Obama administration than someone who had served in it, who had a Rolodex like no one else, and who would badger the hell out of cabinet secretaries like his friend Ray LaHood in the transportation department and never take no for an answer. So he got the most he could when there was still money to have. But of course, when Trump came in, then it became more difficult, and now, of course, those days are over. But so I think Chicago was fortunate to have him at that time, and the sheer force of his personality and his drive gave Chicago a lot, with the CEOs that he courted so heavily and all the corporate locations that came to Chicago and to downtown Chicago because he wouldn't take no for an answer. But as a leader, as a leader of people, as someone who says charge and looks behind you and sees a crowd saying, yeah? No, because he led from the top down. He didn't lead people from the bottom up. He said to them, this is what I'm going to do for you, as opposed to, what do we all think should be the best way? And a classic example of that is Obama Prep, the high school that was supposed to be on the north side. And of course, that was canceled. But how could you be so tone deaf as to put a school named Obama Prep on the north side?
When on the south side and on the west side, there is such a struggle for good schools.
Absolutely. If you were going to name a school after President Obama, and you were going to make it a selective enrollment school, put it on the south side of all things. Ask the people what they think. Don't do it without asking and without getting a consensus. Same with Bishop Brazier Drive. Same thing. From
Had to
Stony
cancel
Island.
it, didn't
Again,
really
had to cancel it, tone deaf.
So does a mayor in the city of Chicago need to be approachable? I mean, you look at Richard J. Daley, Richard M. Daley, Harold Washington. They all had their own sort of nettlesome issues and moments when they didn't like to be questioned. Did Rahm Emanuel need to be warmer and fuzzier than they were?
He's not a warm and fuzzy person. And putting on a sweater in a campaign ad in 2015 doesn't change that. Could he have shown more of his personality and let his hair down? Absolutely. I mean, you really got the feeling, and I'm sure the voters feel this way as well, that when you talked to Rahm Emanuel, when you interviewed him, it was like push play on this topic and you get the recorded announcement about this topic, schools or whatever. He didn't trust himself enough to just answer the question and to be himself.
Did any mayor you've covered trust him or
Jane Byrne was a wonderfully talented politician, probably the best I've ever covered. And she was funny, she was witty. She would come into a room, an arena full of 10,000 people, pick you out in row number 10 and say, "Hi, Carol," and make you feel like you were the only person in that room. And so she was tremendously talented, and she would answer the questions until this final 2 years of her one term, where she was programmed by her consultants and told to calm down and stay away from the press and only say certain things. But I think authenticity is missing in politics. And if Trump showed anything, his election showed, he has something that some of these politicians don't. And that is that when he opens his mouth, you may not like how he does or what he says, but he sounds authentic.
So what happens now? You, Fran Spielman, said after Jane Byrne, it would be a cold day in hell.
I said rainy day in hell.
All right, a
and
rainy
it's
day in
raining
hell.
And it's hell.
That
there is
that
another
Chicago
mayor
would
who's
elect
a
another woman, right?
Yeah, I said that Jane Byrne had blown it so badly. I mean, she came into office. I remember the first day she walked into the lobby of City Hall, there were people hanging from the rafters cheering her. And I said, boy, she could be mayor for life. And what did she do? She blew it. She cut her deal with Verdoliak and Burke after fighting with them for a couple of months, beat them on the floor of the council on an innocuous vote, and then cut her deal with her and with them and the First Ward, turned the council over to them, and sold out her principles. And had she stayed true to her principles, she would have been mayor until she didn't want to anymore. So I think it's just an interesting thing to see that. And now finally, after 40 years, we have another woman mayor. We're going to have another woman mayor, and it's taken this long because she blew it that bad.
So the city council is going to be different for a lot of reasons when this election is over. And one of them is that Ed Burke was federally raided in his offices, has lost the finance committee, and is in federal trouble. Is that going to reconfigure the next city council, do you think?
Well, I think the turnover itself and the kinds of people who've been elected, these are progressive, these are much more left-leaning people. They are going to demand certain social changes and affordable housing and different things like that. And yet, where's the money? Where's the money going to come from? It's almost a setup for the new mayor because you have all these promises, all these demanding people, no money, and you also have people who claim to be reformers, and yet you've got to cut deals in order to get your programs through the city council.
So you've got two women, one of whom is going to be mayor, neither one of whom is necessarily someone who suffers fools gladly or is tremendously approachable in terms of warmth. How's it going to be to cover either Toni Preckwinkle or Lori Lightfoot?
Well, I think Toni Preckwinkle tends to be more programmed. And I think she's been I think she ran a campaign in the first round that was it was almost like this front runner inevitable thing, and it wasn't inevitable at all. And so she stayed away from the press, and that was a mistake. You know, there was something that endeared her when she first got elected alderman, and she should have stayed with that and so she wasn't the old Toni, she was the new Toni, the one who's running stuff.
And Lightfoot?
And Lightfoot seems to be more direct in her answers, but I assume she'll become more controlled as her handlers say, hey, stay away, you know, don't answer these questions
watch
so
out for
directly.
Fran Spielman.
Yeah, watch
She's got
out.
a trap laid for you, right?
And I mean, I'm just looking for straight answers is all. I'm not trying to trap anybody. I would like to see, and it will be refreshing after Rahm Emanuel, to get a straight answer to a question instead of a list. 1, 2, 3, 4.
He does count down those numbers. Do you leave this regime, does he leave this regime with a good relationship with the press or not a good relationship?
Better than it was the first term. He certainly realized that he blew it the first term, and he ran a Rose Garden-y type administration as he had run a Rose Garden campaign in 2011. And so he tried to get out there more, tried to be looser about taking questions. I mean, in the beginning, it was like a joke. You'd have X's on the floor for this person stands here, this person stands here. I remember when J.C. Brizard was named school superintendent, and he was not allowed to speak at the news conference where he was appointed. What kind of message did that send?
Is it fair to say, Fran Spielman, that you still just love what you do?
How could I not? It's fabulous. And we're going to see this unfolding scandal like we've never seen before, where the entire power structure of Illinois and Chicago might even come tumbling down.
Meaning Burke and then Danny Solis, who wore a wire, and who knows what else is part of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is not Penny Annie Alderman anymore in a parking lot with an envelope or under the table. These are the people who control the levers of power. And there's really fairness in that, because there was unfairness in always getting the little guy.
Well, that's why people read you, Fran Spielman, because you always know. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
You're welcome.
There's more on Chicago tonight. Stay with us.
Don't miss one of our stories. Get them all delivered to your desktop or mobile device with a subscription to the WTTW News Daily Briefing. Go to WTTW.com/Daily Briefing and sign up.
For more than 40 years, an employee of the Cook County Clerk's Office has been moonlighting as a rock and roll photographer. Michael G. Bush started out as just a fan and then found himself backstage and on the road with music superstars. Now the photographer/county worker is presenting his first ever solo exhibition.
From rock and roll to soul, blues, pop, and punk. Since the late 1970s, one local fan has brought his camera to concerts and made his way to the front of the crowd.
I didn't take any classes. And in the beginning, I took a lot of horrible pictures, but I just learned. I learned the hard way. I wasted a lot of film. I just kept shooting, and I'm looking for good shots. And if you get them, you get them. You miss them, you miss them. And then that's just the nature of the beast.
He took the photographs while holding a full-time job in the office of the Cook County Clerk. Since 1974, he's divided his time between the elections and the Vital Records Department in the clerk's office.
I was a weekend warrior. I've worked downtown for the county for 44 years. I used to work during the week and fly out on the weekends. I'd be going here, there, everywhere, zip, zap. I couldn't afford the time off, because I still had to work. And I needed the job, and these guys would all tell me, there's no pension in rock and roll. So I just kept it in the back of my mind that I better look out for myself in my later years.
His constant presence at shows led to important connections. Soon he wasn't buying tickets anymore, and he made famous friends, including Carl Wilson of the Beach Boys, seen here with the set list written on his hand.
I got to meet the majority of these people. I just grew up a big Beach Boys fan. So being able to start to shoot the Beach Boys, I would bring them prints, and they say, you know, you're welcome anytime. If you got in good with the promoters, that helped you immensely. I did have a lot of contacts with the artists, which is probably number one, because I always told people, managers and agents come and go, but when you're in with the artist, you're in, no matter who comes and goes.
Michael Bush took promotional shots for the Monkees and photographed the four tops on the set of the Today Show. His pictures of Chuck Berry are featured in Berry's 1987 autobiography. Bush has always favored taking photos of rock and roll pioneers.
I grew up on music. I grew up in the 60s, you know. I was one of the kids with their own little transistor radio. You know, we weren't wealthy enough to buy every single record that you wanted, so, you know, you had to listen to the radio. And that's how I listened to most of these people hanging on the walls here.
His weekend hobby has turned into a second career, one that requires instinct and the right equipment.
You always wanted to try to catch that moment, you know, or something that was like really special. And remember, I was shooting film. It was before digital, and you know, today the camera does virtually everything for you. I mean, I had to set everything. I had no automatic settings. I had to set my f-stop, shutter speed.
Bush decided to put together his first exhibition at the suggestion of one of his biggest fans.
My mom said to me, you know, I want to see you do something with all of these pictures before I die. That's exactly what she said to me. And so I said, okay, Mom, I'll put something together. And that's how this started 2 years ago.
Now he has whittled his life's work down to 61 images to reflect his age. He doesn't rule out another show.
I've got over 1 million images, and I can do one of these probably every week till I die and never run out. If I didn't have that job, I probably would have 4 or 5 times what I have.
And the photo exhibit is called 61 at 61. It is at the Juby Art Center in Bridgeport until April 5th. There's more to see about these photos on our website. And now to Brandis Friedman and a new movie that deals with a very real city issue. Brandis.
Librarians will tell you that the library is more than a place to borrow the latest Gillian Flynn thriller. You can get internet access, try out new tech, even learn a new skill. But for the homeless population, libraries have been a refuge from brutal weather and dangerous streets. In his new film, The Public, writer, director, and actor Emilio Estevez explores what happens when a cold snap hits Cincinnati and a downtown library's homeless patrons refuse to leave. Here's a clip. And joining us now are Emilio Estevez, writer, director, and star of The Public, Chicago-based actor, rapper, and activist Che Rhymefest-Smith, who plays one of the library occupiers in the movie, and Ryan Dowd, executive director of Hesed House, a homeless shelter in Aurora, and author of the book The Librarian's Guide to Homelessness, an empathy-driven approach to solving problems, preventing conflict, and serving everyone. Gentlemen, welcome all of you to Chicago tonight.
Thank you.
Emilio Estevez, let's start with you. How did you get the idea for this movie? What did you want to convey here?
So this journey began about 12 years ago, April 1st, 2007, with an article in the LA Times. It was written by a retiring Salt Lake City librarian named Chip Ward. And the thesis of Chip's essay was that libraries have become de facto homeless shelters, and that librarians have become first responders and de facto social workers. And so I was moved by the piece. I had done the bulk of my research at the downtown LAPL branch in Los Angeles for another film that I directed called Bobby. So I knew the world that Chip was talking about, but I didn't know that it had gotten this to this crisis level. And he said it wasn't just Salt Lake, but it was happening all over the country. So went back to the library, hung around, absorbed it, went back the next day, and then the next. And I began to envision a story about what would happen if the patrons, many of whom are homeless and suffering from mental health issues, decided to occupy. What would that look like? How would law enforcement react? How would the politicians react? How would the media respond to this, and how they would spin it? And again, this is before we've reached this sort of crisis spin zone that we're in currently with the media. So this was, again, going back 12 years. And the movie is now oddly and sadly more relevant than it would have been had we made it 10 years ago.
Chase Smith, what attracted you to your role? You play a character named George.
Yeah, so I play Big George, but what attracted me to the role was I dealt with my father being homeless for over 30 years. And in fact, when I first met my father, we met at the public library because this was the place where he had dignity. This is the place where we could meet, and it wasn't the park where he was hanging out, or it wasn't the homeless shelter. It was a neutral ground. And so the first time I ever met my homeless father was in the public library. And as you know, we did the documentary In My Father's House. Emilio's mom saw it and contacted him and said, you need to put this young man in this film.
That's right.
And that's how we met.
Yeah, and I reached out to him and I said, I've seen the documentary. Have you ever done any acting? And he says, I've been acting my whole life. And he says, I'd love to continue this conversation. And we did. And not only does he play George in the film, but he also wrote 3 original tracks for the picture. So,
and it's so deep because, you know, as we were shooting the film, one of the young ladies who was cleaning the room when I was making the music, she came in and I said, you know, let me rap this song to you. And I started rapping the song about homelessness, and she started crying. I said, oh, wait, what's wrong? She said, I'm homeless now. I'm sleeping in my car. And I started, during the shooting of the film, I started to realize how deep it went, that it wasn't just destitution. People with jobs are homeless.
Right, the working poor.
And so the two of you, obviously, you had that interesting connection through your documentary, but Emilio Estevez, you were also able to connect with Ryan Dowd. Ryan, tell me a little bit about how you've been kind of helping since this movie has been created.
Yeah, so we got connected. I wrote The Librarian's Guide to Homelessness. Emilio heard about it, reached out. We did a Q&A together accidentally at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and it must have gone fairly well because we've done, I don't know, 20 or 30 since. And now we're touring the country, doing screenings of the movie and then Q&As afterwards.
And what's your impression of how homeless people are depicted in this film?
This movie is the first movie in a long, long time to actually get it right. Most Hollywood movies get homelessness wrong. Either they grab every stereotype and they smash it into one person, or they take the noble, poor image of this perfect human being who's never done anything wrong, unlike every human being who's ever existed. This movie grabs the full humanity, the sadness and the happiness and the humor and the fear, and really humanizes homelessness in a way that, again, Hollywood just never gets right.
Emilio Estevez, I noticed a lot of themes you talk about in this film: the opioid epidemic, obviously mental illness and homeless in the veteran population. There's even mention of an unarmed police shooting. So a lot of real life problems. Why was it important for you to work those in?
Well, if you think about the library, a modern day library is really the place where all of the most important issues of our time are intersecting. So the intersectionality of climate change, our climate crisis, opioid addiction, homelessness, mental health issues, the dismantling of our civil and our constitutional rights, all of that is colliding under the roof of your local library. And so to set a film in the library meant you also had to deal with all of these issues, and you had to address them. And you know, there's been some criticism that I've overbaked the cake, but man, if not now, when? I mean, we got to deal with a lot of these issues, and I think through the arts is one of the, most effective ways to address it.
Chase Smith, working in a real life library, like when you all were creating this film, how did that sort of influence how you approached your job?
Well, you know, you realize that the library is an institution that should be controlled by the people, not by the politicians. And what Emilio did, which was great, was he surrounded the set not only with a great ensemble cast, but with actual homeless people who worked on the set, who were part of the extras. And
we're dealing with many of the same issues that we were dealing with in shelters. Individuals experiencing homelessness, mental health issues, substance abuse issues, that they had many of the same behaviors that they had to struggle through, but they weren't getting any of the training that we were getting inside shelters. And so bringing some of that experience and expertise from the shelter into the libraries, and it's been just wildly well received.
You offer some fairly specific tips as well, like how to deal with body odor, which is an issue that comes up in this film, panhandling in the library. What's your advice to librarians on that?
Wow, I wrote a whle book, so it's hard to kind of to sum it up, but I guess really a lot of it comes down to if you treat individuals with humanity and with dignity and don't try to kind of lord your power over them, they tend to respond a heck of a lot better, and yet somehow we forget that when dealing with individuals that are marginalized.
Emilio Estevez, we have to talk about the role of media in this film.
Right.
What was the intent? What was the role of media intended to be in this film?
Well, that how in chasing a story, the media can oftentimes get it wrong. I mean, we just had this situation over the weekend in Los Angeles where we have this active shooter at the Century City Mall. No, they downgraded it after 2 hours of saying active shooter. It was a suspicious package, and then at the end of the day, it was nothing. So, so often we see the media jumping for that breaking news story that they think is going to get them the clicks and the eyeballs, and that's what happens in this picture, is that there's an irresponsibility displayed by the media, which does get it wrong, which does ultimately endanger the lives of everybody in the lockdown.
You also led an ensemble cast.
Right.
What was that like for both of you, kind of bringing all those big personalities and big actors together?
It was, every day was a special day. You weren't sure what you were going to get. Obviously, a lot of personalities with Jeffrey Wright, Alec Baldwin, Taylor Schilling, Jenna Malone, Christian Slater, Michael Kay. Gabrielle Union. I mean, just
you
this.
Too.
So every day was just sort of this, just a mixed bag. But there was a lot of magic on the set. And again, we shot the movie in 22 days. So there's a lot on the screen for a very little amount of time devoted to the actual physical production.
And the actors, one of the great things about his direction is that the actors got to be creative in our own roles. So you got to see the actors bring their take to the role, and Emilio allowed that to happen, which created just a chemistry and a dynamic where we all related to each other on and off the set. Right. So, look, Michael K. Williams and I got into some heated debates and discussions, and Emilio was like, "Can I have my characters back? I'm rolling," and then and now we're ready, and in that process, I was taught a lot about acting, about what it takes to be a full creative within being authentic.
Ryan, I have to ask you as well. I want to get you in before we go. Jeffrey Wright's character in this film, he calls the library the last bastion of democracy. How do you see it?
Absolutely, absolutely, and not just because of the obvious reasons of providing information and combating fake news and fake narratives, but also because it's one of those last institutions in our country where all the different socioeconomic groups come together in one place. And we need that desperately for democracy, because when middle-class people and wealthy people never interact with poor and homeless individuals, they make really lousy policy decisions on their behalf. And so we desperately need libraries and more places like libraries where all the different socioeconomic groups can come together and interact.
And before we go, I have to ask, Emilio Estevez, we've seen you in a blue hoodie before in a library. Is this a homecoming?
A bit, yes. It's no accident that I'm back in a library in a different sort of self-imposed detention this time.
22 days, it's a lot.
Right. There's a little Easter egg to Breakfast Club. There's a scene in which a librarian is reading to some children, and she's reading Ali Sheedy's book, She Was Nice to Mice, which Ali published when she was 11 years old. So that is a little nod to the Breakfast Club that I've buried in the body of the film.
Nice touch. Emilio Estevez, Che Rhymefest-Smith, and Ryan Dowd, thanks to all of you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And you can watch the trailer for The Public on our website, where there's also an excerpt from Ryan Dowd's book, The Librarian's Guide to Homelessness. Again, The Public opens in theaters on April 5th, and we're back with more right after this.
Don't ever miss Chicago Tonight. Subscribe to our podcast. Get a daily download of our show delivered to your desktop or mobile device. Go to WTTW.com/Chicago Tonight Podcast and subscribe.
And that's our show for this Wednesday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing, and join us tomorrow night live at 7. A report uncovers the discrepancy between discipline of female and male inmates in prison. And he wrote the score for Aladdin and so much more. Composer Alan Menken joins us live. And if you haven't seen our WTTW News special, The Choice for Mayor, or if you want to see it again, our in-depth biographical documentaries of Lori Lightfoot and Tony Preckwinkle air tonight at 10 p.m. right here on WTTW. Now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices. Robert Clifford is a co-chair of the fundraising committee for events marking the 200th anniversary of the Courts of the Northern District of Illinois.